Dana just made some of the craziest fight-breaking news in the featherweight and welterweight divisions, with the biggest of them being Ilia Topuria actually living by his word that he was going to vacate the belt. He vacates the featherweight title because he wants to move up to lightweight. He said the weight cut's too much, which is crazy because he doesn't look like a big featherweight. I don't know if it's because of a nutrition thing. I don't know if he is cutting weight the best way, or he really is that big for the weight class. But he wants to move to lightweight, and we have no idea who he's going to fight. There's the potential Islam Makhachev fight, who seemingly has no one else to fight himself, besides maybe a rematch with Charles Oliveira. We know that Charles and Max Holloway were talking about fighting each other, or it could be Ilia Topuria fighting Charles Oliveira, or maybe Ilia Topuria versus Dustin Poirier. But if he's fighting Dustin in his retirement fight, then, Dustin beating Ilia would really mess up a lot of things, as Dustin leaves the sport after. I have a feeling we might see the Topuria and Islam fight, because now the welterweight champion has essentially 2 fights lined up back-to-back. Belal Muhammad is going to be fighting Jack Della Maddalena. They moved that fight off the Leon card, and Dana said that Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to get the next title shot against the winner of Belal and Jack Della. So seemingly there is no Islam Makhachev moving up to welterweight, because if Dana's saying that the champion at welterweight has 2 fights lined up, we might in fact see Islam versus Topuria. That's what it seems like. And Ilia Topuria, he pretty much ended his featherweight legacy, which is a great legacy to beat Volk and Holloway back-to-back, knocking them both out. But at the same time, he had 1 title defense. He didn't fight everybody in the division. So because he just gave up the belt this early in his career, he can never be the greatest featherweight of all time. He didn't fight there long enough. He didn't get enough title defenses and beat all the contenders that Jose Aldo, Volkanovski, and Max Holloway attempted to do. But instead of that, he could try to become the greatest fighter overall across weight classes. If he goes out there and beats Islam Makhachev, which he has a decent chance of doing. I think he has a better chance of beating Islam than Volk did. And if he does, if he beats Islam, defends his title against Charles Oliveira, let's say, I mean, right from there, you have to regard him as one of the greatest ever. Even though he didn't have the longevity, right? He doesn't have all the title defenses and the crazy long streak as champion. He has defeated the best fighters in the world across 2 weight classes. He literally would have beaten the 2 greatest featherweights and the 2 greatest lightweights of his era. Now, that seems far-fetched, but that's only 2 fights away. The fights are difficult, though. I don't know if he beats Islam. I don't know if he beats Charles, but the guy has so much confidence. He believes he can become the greatest fighter of all time. He believes that he can be the fighter who defeats Islam Makhachev. And it seems like that is the fight that the UFC wants. Islam has expressed before that he doesn't care about the Ilia fight as much. He just want to keep giving these featherweights a title shot, but maybe they go another direction with Ilia, but I don't know, man. With the welterweight title having a log jam at the top and multiple contenders there, even confirmed to fight the winner of Belal versus Jack Della, there's not enough room for Islam to go up there. So we'll see. It's a very interesting time for the welterweight division. Jack is going to be fighting the champion, which is great, but I'm not as interested in it as the Shavkat fight, because I really think Belal was just going to wrestle him into a decision and make it look kind of easy. And Jack hasn't fought in a long time. By the time him and Belal fight, it'll be over a year since he's fought. Going from that into a title fight against Belal, who has a very favorable style to beat the striker in Jack, it's going to be interesting, but I do think the fight is going to be a wrestle clinic. Belal just cardio fights him, wrestles him to a decision. I can see Jack Della coming out there and Belal starts pressuring back with the jab and faking takedowns. Jack starts moving back slowly, but getting punched in the face a few times, and then a double leg from Belal when Jack is trying to counter, pushes him up against the fence, and from there he's going for a ride. Takedown city. I can see Belal getting multiple takedowns in the first round as Jack keeps standing up, only getting Jack more tired as Belal can do that all day. Belal can fight like that for 5 rounds straight. Jack has never been 5 rounds in his entire career. And if Belal gets like 10 takedowns on him, I don't know if Jack has the cardio to land that knockout in the mid to late rounds, especially while he's moving backwards, right? Because Belal's not going to be tall to get hit by some big punch. He's always going to be level changing. So Jack could time a knee like he did against Gilbert Burns, but Belal is smart, right? He comes from a good camp. They're going to train for that and not shooting recklessly from range like that, right? Getting close, throw punches, and then get right on the legs instead of from distance. So the knee doesn't have as much space or time to get up there. And in the meantime, they're throwing in Shawn Brady at Leon Edwards on relatively short notice. Now, this is the fight I was wanting for a long time. I wanted to see how Brady can do against Leon. The fight is in a month, so Shawn Brady has to get into training camp a month before the fight. That should be a good one. Now, this fight's difficult because if Leon fights the way he fought Belal and Colby, Shawn Brady's going to do exactly what Belal did to him. He's going to cardio fight him, get in his face, throwing punches, level changing for takedowns, and just constantly mixing in his striking and wrestling to win that fight. And Shawn Brady is more dangerous on the ground than Belal Muhammad was. He has very good submissions. He could potentially get an arm triangle choke on top. This is also something that Kamaru Usman doesn't do either, right? Usman and Belal don't really go for submissions as much as Brady does. Brady is way better with submissions than them. Where they are better wrestlers than Brady Brady is better at submissions than them, and I think he's good enough with his wrestling to take Leon to the ground and get top position. So I can see them coming out there. Leon's feinting a few times, and Brady starts moving forward, putting pressure on Leon, getting him to move to the fence. Throws a few punches. Leon throws a big counter right hook. Brady goes under it, double legs, dumps him on the ground, landing ground and pound, has good top position, and working for the submission every time he gets a takedown. And that's just a rinse and repeat of every round. If Leon gets back up to his feet, I can see Brady chain wrestling and dumping him to the ground again into maybe like a 4th or 5th round submission. But if Leon fights more aggressively, then he could absolutely win this fight. He could beat almost anybody in the world if he fights aggressive, but that's just not his style. And you're probably asking, where's Shavkat? Well, Shavkat is injured. That's why he's not fighting Belal Muhammad. And the thing is, if Sean Brady beats Leon Edwards, how do you not give him a title shot? Does he have to fight again because he's going up against the #1 contender? The only thing about that is he lost to Belal and he got finished by Belal in the 2nd round. So in that aspect, you give Shavkat the winner of the title no matter what. And then whoever wins between Leon and Sean Brady, it's like, okay, there's your 3rd contender. Jack Della's the 1st title challenger. Shavkat's waiting in the wings. And then whoever wins between Leon and Sean Brady is right after that. The welterweight champion has his work cut out for him. There's a lineup of contenders ready to fight him. And hopefully, Belal or Jack Della, whoever's the champ, fights more often, right? Because if they're fighting in April, and Shavkat's just waiting after the injury heals up, it'd be great to see the champion fight again this year and fight the winner of Leon and Brady early next year. But the way the welterweight champ usually defends their title, no matter who it is, besides Kamaru Usman, he was the only active champ, it'd be like, okay, fight Jack Della this year, then fight Shavkat next year, and then fight the winner of Leon and Sean Brady the year after, or at the end of 2026. It's like, bro, if Leon and Brady are fighting in March of 2025, and because of how often the welterweight champion fights, they get to fight for the belt at the end of 2026, that would be crazy. And in the featherweight division, the vacant title is going to be fought between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopes. I like this fight better for Volkanovski's chances of reclaiming his belt. This is going to be such a great fight. Alexander Volkanovski is going to come out there, feinting, hand trapping, switching stances, filling out the aggression of Diego Lopes. How much does he want to attack at the beginning of a 5-round fight? For the title too, so it's a different dynamic than a 3-round non-title fight. And I think Diego's going to go for the knockout like he usually does. Pressures Volkanovski. Volk is throwing out jabs and leg kicks to offset Diego. Diego tries to cut him off with a high kick, throws some hooks. Volk gets under the punches and lands an overhand, showing that he is in the fight. Volk still got it. Stuns Diego Lopes with that overhand. Another jab to the face from Volk. Diego's trying to find his openings. He's not as aggressive now. He starts respecting Volkanovski. And I do think maybe in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, they do get into some crazy exchange where Diego is pressuring him and eventually lands an uppercut or a hook, dropping Volkanovski and finishes the legend with ground and pound. If this is prime Volk without those 2 knockout losses, I think he should beat Diego Lopes, but I don't think he'll be as durable after the Ilia and Islam fights. I think Volkanovski has the style in order to win, but does he have the chin to take one big shot from Diego? I don't know. Diego is reckless. He's almost entirely offense when he's in the octagon. He's going to be pressuring Volkanovski in one sequence of trading shots, and Volkanovski could get knocked out. Diego Lopes is a very good chin, so he's probably going to be in there for the long run. But does he have the cardio to go 5 rounds with Volkanovski? That's going to be the interesting part of that fight. And that is, in fact, going to be headlining UFC 314. And I'll make a video about the whole card. But we also have 2 other fights that got introduced for that card. Michael Chandler is going to be fighting Paddy Pimblett. This is a great fight to have, right? Chandler's been going up against the top-ranked fighters of the lightweight division, even after coming off losses. To see him now fight someone who's up and coming, not in the top 10, is the move to make. Now, I think stylistically, they could beat each other. They're both not great defensively in the stand-up. Chandler has the punching power to knock Paddy out. He's also bigger than Paddy. He has the wrestling to stop the takedowns of Paddy. So if Chandler fights this intelligently, he has the style to beat Paddy Pimblett. But in Chandler fashion, he'll probably swing from the bleachers, and Paddy could just take him down off an overextended shot and submit him. But the thing is, Chandler has survived Charles Oliveira on his back, so he has gone up against some of the best grapplers in the sport and did not get submitted by them. If Paddy could submit Chandler, that's a big statement. But I do favor Chandler going into that fight. And then in the featherweight division, we have the newcomer, but also MMA veteran, Patricio Pitbull, for his first UFC fight, going up against Yair Rodriguez. Patricio Pitbull has been a long-time Bellator fighter, one of the best Bellator fighters of all time. He's a guy who knocked out Michael Chandler in the first round, was a double champ, lightweight and featherweight. Not in his prime anymore, but it should be an interesting fight with Yair Rodriguez, right? The short, compact Pitbull going to be throwing power punches and try to take down Yair as a well-rounded mixed martial artist, whereas Yair has a completely different style. Flashy striker, submissions off his guard, should be a good fight. I think Pitbull might have an advantage stylistically, but he's not in his prime anymore, so I do think Yair should probably win that fight. Yair Rodriguez comes out there, measuring range with his jab, throwing out a few leg kicks and body kicks, and Pitbull's moving back and forth, gets some of those kicks to miss, and then explodes with the right hand through the opening, getting Yair moving back. But a lot of resetting in the fight, and I think Yair would eventually maybe land a high kick or something like that, because sometimes Pitbull likes to fight in the center, and that's where Yair shines. With those long-range kicks, it can be very difficult for Pitbull to get in close and land his shots, unless he uses takedowns, right? That would be interesting. And the other one is Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. This is the fight to make. You know, obviously Manon Fiorot is the #1 contender. If it wasn't going to be Zhang Weili, and Zhang Weili doesn't fight that often, so maybe she'll fight the winner later in the year, which will make sense. You know, I think Manon Fiorot, you have to give her a title shot. She's undefeated in the UFC. She's beaten everybody there is to beat. It should be an interesting fight. I don't think it's going to be the most exciting. There's going to be a lot of clinching and like a technical chess match on the feet. So it could be fun in that way, but it's not going to be like some kind of barn burner, you know? There's no Tom Aspinall and John Jones news. That was the one we were waiting for, but Dana said it's going to happen. He said that fight's going to happen, and he's got to convince John Jones to take the fight, and Jones seems like he just doesn't care about it. So those are the fight news. Crazy stuff. I will be making a video about the whole UFC 314 card because it's stacked, and it doesn't even have 2 title fights either. You don't need 2 title fights in order to make a pay-per-view card stacked in that way. You just need good fights, good matchmaking altogether. But UFC 315 is also looking good. We'll see how that one's put together, but right now it's like 7 fights on the card, so about half the card is done. And that one has 2 title fights, Belal versus Jack Della and Valentina versus Manon Fiorot. I want to get excited for Belal versus Jack Della, but I really think Belal is just going to wrestle him the whole fight, and Jack can't defend against it. I mean, he was taken down multiple times by Gilbert Burns and Basil Hafez. That's you're jumping a whole new level in wrestling when you're fighting Belal compared to those guys, and way better cardio, and probably even physically stronger than those guys. As much as I like Jack's style, he's one of the best boxers in the UFC. Love watching him fight, but I don't think his wrestling is just up to par to beat someone like Belal. I mean, if he's throwing around Leon Edwards, who has much better wrestling than Jack Della, Jack might be spending that whole fight on his back and up against the fence. So, crazy fight news. Leave in the comments below what you guys think about all these fights. Which ones are your favorites? For me, I like the Volkanovski and Lopez fight the best out of them. Just the matchmaking of it, right? Without looking at Ilia Topuria vacating the belt, I like Volk versus Lopez, belt or no belt, the most out of all these fights. It's such a good one. Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett is another great fight too. And Yair versus Pitbull is also an excellent fight as well. This video is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, and now an official partner with the UFC. And just like the athletes fight in the cage, Morgan & Morgan will also fight for their clients. Morgan & Morgan is giving away 2 tickets to the Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev fight in Las Vegas, plus $2,000, an amazing card with great fights, and many others throughout the whole card. You get a chance to win by going to morganufc.com, a dream for any UFC fan. And all you have to do is click the link in the description below or head to morganufc.com/weasel to enter the contest and to see if you can win. It'd be awesome to see you guys there.